Here's a look at a pretty lengthy list of Tottenham's recent managers since Mauricio Pochettino, 3 of them in yellow as well. Interim managers, Ryan Mason's name coming up there twice. It doesn't look, though, Julien Laurens, as though Julian Nagelsmann's name will be on that list anytime soon. Tell us more.
Yeah, that's right, Kay. This is the latest news that we're hearing today, is that there won't be a Julian Nagelsmann and Tottenham agreement to take over Ryan Mason's current job and lead the team next season. They've had many discussions, many meetings. They talked a lot. But I mean, I don't want to be mean with Spurs. I think Nagelsmann from the beginning was not too convinced by the project, by the absence of a sporting director, because right now Spurs are without a manager, a permanent manager, and without a sporting director. With the fact that there won't be Champions League football next season, and I think Nagelsmann really wanted a team that could play in the Champions League, challenge for titles, etc., which is not the case at Spurs. So it was a very long shot at the beginning already, but now we know that it won't be him, it won't be Vincent Kompany neither, who they really liked but extended his contract with Burnley. It won't be Mauricio Pochettino either, because he's going to go and take the Chelsea job. So that means the list of potential contenders now is much slimmer than it was a few weeks ago.
So, Jules, who said no to who? Because reports would have us think that Spurs have said no to Nagelsmann, but is it Nagelsmann saying no to Spurs? What do you know there?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a mutual agreement. I don't think Nagelsmann was very keen from the beginning. I think Spurs liked him, and he's a very bright young manager, but they also had reservations about, you know, some of the issues that we saw before, whether that was at Bayern Munich this season or even before that at Leipzig. So I think it was not like Spurs were sold on completely on Nagelsmann. I don't think he was either on them. So in the end, I think it's a logical end to the kind of flirtation that they had together, that it was not going to be. And to be fair, had it been him, I think he would have been done pretty much already, even if there's no rush, because he wouldn't have taken over now. It was for next season. But still, I think they would have been able to find an agreement earlier. So it was always the sense, I think, and the direction that he was taking, that they were not going to find an agreement.
So the wait goes on. Let's take a look at some of the odds, shall we, of the names that are on the list now. Xabi Alonso, top of the list there, followed by Brendan Rodgers. Who do you like on the list, Stevie?
Wow. Who do I like? Listen, Xabi Alonso right now is getting a lot of good things said about him, but has he really got enough experience to take over a club the size of Tottenham? Graham Potter, is it too soon after Chelsea, or actually would that just be a smart move? Because clearly he was never really given a chance. You know, he in my opinion wasn't given an opportunity to do well at Chelsea. So if you want to erase Potter and Chelsea out of his CV, then I guess the answer is Potter.
Potter for you.
Yeah.
What about you, Don? Who did you like on the list?
I think when I look back at 2021, when Nuno took the job, Tottenham were linked with about 10 different managers, and people kept saying, no, it's not the right project. And they went for Nuno, and that failed. This reminds me of the same sort of time where the big name managers are moving on elsewhere, because they're probably looking at the project of Tottenham Hotspur, where potentially Harry Kane not going to be there. So they're thinking, well, what chance have we got? As Jules said, they've not got a sporting director. So who's hiring who? The name I think could probably do a good job, I think, in the short term, and I mean over the next 2 or 3 years on that list, was probably Brendan Rodgers. I see his style of football fitting in quite well. I think he talks well. I think he knows the game inside out. He's good. He's reliable. All right, he's had a bad season at Leicester, but I think there's context to what's happened there in terms of Leicester selling their best players over the last 2 or 3 years and a million injuries. And actually the job that he done on the whole wasn't a bad one. FA Cup and finished 5th twice, pushing for Champions League. So I think out of them names, I think it's Brendan. But I just think it's a bit of a mess. It's who's calling the shots there. Is, you know, you asked Jules the question before, who's saying no to who, and, you know, which potential managers are getting interviewed and saying, well, who's the sporting director going to be? Are you choosing a sporting director? Because if you're choosing one, I might not want to work with them. I want to bring my own sporting director in. So it's an absolute mess on top of, as I said, Harry Kane potentially not being there. So I don't know. It's a big call from Daniel Levy, and the one I would pick on that list, as I said, from Brendan, because he knows the Premier League well. And I think over the piece and over the jobs that he's done at Liverpool and Leicester, I think he's a very, very good manager.
With all those factors taken into account, Jules, who do you think would be a good fit from that list?
Well, I think Ryan Mason is because the others are ruling themselves out or they're being ruled out. I think Mason, if he finishes well the season, has a chance. I really believe that. Whether you think he's ready or not, he's good enough or not, it's not the problem. But he has a chance because it's not going to be Xabi Alonso who says already that he's going to stay by Leverkusen. Would Graham Potter go back? Brendan Rodgers, I'm sure, would go back. I'm not too sure about Rodgers. I won't lie. This is a big job. This is a squad that has a lot of issues. Don't mention Riley, that we don't know if Harry Kane is going to be there next season. Hugo Lloris is not going to be there. So already, if Kane goes, you think about you need a top striker, a top goalkeeper as well. There's issues in defense. There's no creativity. There's not that creative midfielder. So you need to go and buy that creative midfielder, maybe two even. And Son is getting older, and this is a bad season for him. Lucas Moura is leaving, so you need, Danjuma is on loan. There's so many things to think about and work on that squad and rebuild in a way, or even if rebuilding might be the wrong word, but at least to sort out, because it's a squad that is completely unbalanced right now, and there's no sporting director. It's the worst thing that could happen in this search for a new manager at Spurs is the fact that they've got nobody guiding it, apart from Daniel Levy, who's got another million things to sort out. And the lack of sporting director is huge because, as we always say, and the people who listen or watch our show all the time, we said how important the relationship between the sporting director and the manager is. And if they're not on the same page, it's going to fail. We've seen it so many times. So choosing a head coach or manager without having a sporting director already in place is an absolute nightmare because you need to get them both right and both to get on and be on the same page and want the same thing in the same direction to make it work. And for that, it's much easier if you already have a good sporting director that you trust in, that can help you choosing the right manager with whom it will form a good partnership, which is not the case right now. So it's going to be very difficult, I think, for Spurs to get it all right.
Well, one thing that they might get right, it's a name that you guys have both mentioned, is that Harry Kane might just be staying a little longer. If we are to read into a recent interview he gave, this is what he said. He said, "I always give my all for the team and for the club. I think off the pitch, to have those conversations with the chairman and the staff here and try to give my opinion on some of the things that I think can help us just be more consistent and more successful in the culture we try to set." It's been a difficult season. Probably the last couple of years, the last 2 or 3, we haven't been where we want to be as a club. So ultimately, there's some internal stuff we need to talk about. We need to discuss some of the standards around the team and the training ground, which we need to get back to. We had standards, those in place when Mauricio Pochettino was here. So internally, we need to do that. Says, ultimately, I like to play football games no matter what competition it is. If you end up in the Conference League and win it, it's worth it. If you don't, then people probably look at it as an inconvenience. But when you've been at a club where we haven't won a trophy for 15 years, if we do end up in it, it could be an opportunity to try and put that to bed. John, let me start with you first. There's a lot of talk about we and him looking to the future here. It does suggest that he is looking to stay around just from that interview, what we've taken there.
I totally agree. And I think more so, in the last paragraph when he was saying about what competition Spurs finish in and if we can win it, it's building blocks for the future. It sounds like when you read that, it potentially sounds like he might be wanting to stay for one more year and run his contract down and maybe go on a free next year. It's a massive call for him because it's all about timing in football. We know that the Man City move was very close a couple of years back, but that's now gone. So that move's probably gone. Real Madrid, Barca, all the big moves, Liverpool are all dead for him now. So there's only Man United or Spurs. I think he's probably options, or Bayern. But I think he wants to break Alan Shearer's records. He wants to stay in the Premier League. So it sounds like by that interview, I think Spurs fans will read into that they can be quite optimistic that he might stay for one more year.
What do you think, Jules? One more year for Harry Kane at Spurs?
Yeah, I think so. I really do. I've said it all along. I can understand why United might try or might be interested and see if a move is possible. I think it's going to be very hard to deal with Daniel Levy, even with Harry having only 1 year left on his contract. and he might also want to be part of this just next step and kind of be part of that rebuilding job that we're talking about. And also, I think it depends a lot on who comes in as a manager, because that guy might inspire Kane to sign a new deal, to stay a bit longer, a bit like what the relationship that he had with Pochettino, which was such a strong relationship. So I think a lot of things can still happen. But yeah, I agree with Don. I think he will stay another season. And I would not even rule out him at some point extending his deal if, again, he believes that the right manager is in place. He believes that the club is back on the right path, in the right direction to go and try to win things. And if that's the European Conference League, so be it. But you have to start somewhere anyway. I mean, I think right now they would take anything really as trophy.
He keeps sucking him in, though, Daniel Levy, doesn't he? He keeps sucking Harry Kane in. Now, over the years, whenever you think Harry Kane's going to leave, they get Jose Mourinho in. He'll talk to him. He'll convince him he can win a trophy. Then when Jose goes, Harry Kane's going to go. Oh, Antonio Conte, serial winner. Why don't you stay for another year? He keeps dangling that carrot, Levy. He's very, very smart.
What if it isn't Nuno again, though, Don?
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing. It's do you leave? I mean, Man United, from what I've been told, haven't got bundles of money. I think their transfer budget is in and around £100 million, so they need about 2 or 3 players. They obviously need a number 9, so you'd buy Harry Kane because he guarantees you 30 goals a season. But can they afford him? And will Daniel Levy sell to Man United? So, it depends if, Harry Kane must have been walking off the pitch, Kay, against Bournemouth thinking, I think this is it, it's done. And then a week later, they go to St James's Park in front of that crowd, that hostile atmosphere of amazing Geordies singing and the noise and the colour and the atmosphere, thinking, you know what, I want a little bit of this. I can see where Newcastle are going. So he must be so devastated, really, that he can't win a trophy with Spurs. He's given them so many loyal years that he might just be thinking, do you know what, I'll give them one more. I'll give them one more try.
Stevie?
How many times is Daniel Levy going to reel this guy in? It's like catching a fish. It's like catching a fish and coming back next week, and then you catch the same one, throw it back, and then the following week you come back and you catch it again.
And every time you're a little bit more downtrodden by it.
Exactly. I mean, Harry Kane, by the way, fantastic. Says all the right things, makes people think he's going to stay.
Is that all he's doing here?
Well, what's he going to say? He's not going to turn around and say, oh, no, I've had enough of this nonsense, I'm off.
But why go so in depth of the situations that need change?
Because he's a smart guy. He's a smart guy. As soon as somebody's putting a microphone in front of him, he's got to think about what he's saying. And he can't be saying, I'm off. Or he can't be saying anything remotely that he's going to leave because we'll jump on it and everybody else will jump on it. So it's a smart move. He said all the right things, including if we're in the Conference League. I mean, all this nonsense. Why is he talking about the training ground? Seriously, things like that. So he's covered all his bases. And if he takes the bait again from Levy, then I'll tell you what, I'm sorry, I don't know what he's thinking about. Because Don absolutely was spot on. When you go to Newcastle or City or Liverpool or anywhere else and you feel it, you just feel it. And you think...
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN+.